Everyone thinks they already know the answer. If someone asked you, "What's the most valuable currency on Earth?" most people would probably say, the dollar, maybe the euro, or even the British pound. After all, they're everywhere. They dominate world trade. They're trusted by governments, and they're used by millions of people every single day. So the strongest currency must be one of them, right? Wrong. Because the world's most valuable currency doesn't belong to the biggest economy. It isn't printed by the richest superpower, and it isn't the currency most travelers carry in their wallets. Instead, it comes from a country so small, many people couldn't even point to it on a map. Yet every single unit of its money is worth more than the dollar, more than the euro, and even more than the British pound. So, how did a tiny nation create the world's most expensive currency? And why have most people never heard about it? The answer begins in the Middle East, a country called Kuwait. Its currency is the Kuwaiti Dinar, often written as KWD. And one Kuwaiti Dinar is worth roughly $3.25. That makes it the highest valued, widely circulated currency unit in the world. Not because Kuwait has the biggest economy, not because everyone uses it, but because of something far more interesting, something most people completely misunderstand about money. And once you understand the T difference, you'll never look at exchange rates the same way again. Here's where almost everyone gets confused. People hear the phrase, the world's strongest currency, and they immediately think, the most powerful economy. But that's not what most valuable currency actually means. These are two completely different things. A currency's value is simply its exchange rate against another currency. Its power is something else entirely. The US dollar dominates global trade. It's the currency governments keep in their reserves. Oil is largely priced in dollars. International businesses settle trillions of dollars in transactions every year. That's why the dollar sits at the center of the global financial system. But none of that automatically makes $1 the highest valued unit of money. Think of it this way. A kilogram isn't more valuable than a gram because it's more important. It's simply a larger unit. Currencies work in a similar way. Each country decides how its currency is divided and valued. Some countries choose smaller base units. Others maintain larger ones. So when you see that one Kuwaiti dinar exchanges for more than $3, it doesn't mean Kuwait is 3 times richer than America. It doesn't mean its economy is bigger. And it certainly doesn't mean the dollar is weak. It simply means the Kuwaiti dinar has been designed and managed to maintain a much higher value per individual unit. That single distinction is why millions of people misunderstand currency rankings. But that raises an even bigger question. If exchange rates are shaped by policy, what exactly did Kuwait do differently? Long before the Kuwaiti dinar became the world's highest valued currency, Kuwait used a completely different form of money. For years, everyday transactions relied on the Gulf rupee, a currency issued by India specifically for trade across the Persian Gulf. It worked well while the region's economies were closely tied together. But Kuwait was changing. Its oil industry was expanding at an extraordinary pace. Government revenues were rising, and the country was preparing to take full control of its own financial future. After gaining independence from Britain in 1961, Kuwait introduced a brand new national currency, the Kuwaiti Dinar. The Gulf rupee was gradually withdrawn, and for the first time, Kuwait had complete control over its own monetary policy. The timing couldn't have been better. As global demand for oil surged, Kuwait became one of the world's leading oil exporters. For a country with a relatively small population, that meant enormous income flowing into the economy. But oil alone wasn't enough. History is filled with resource-rich nations whose currencies collapsed under inflation, debt, or political instability. Kuwait took a different path. It built large financial reserves, managed public finances carefully, and allowed its central bank to focus on long-term stability rather than short-term political pressure. Over time, international confidence in the dinar continued to grow. Not because Kuwait printed more money, but because it resisted doing exactly that. Yet even oil wealth doesn't fully explain why the dinar has stayed at the top for decades. The real secret lies in a decision Kuwait made years later. A decision that most of the world barely noticed. Oil made Kuwait wealthy, but wealth alone doesn't keep a currency stable. That requires something far more difficult: trust. And Kuwait protects that trust with a strategy few countries use. For many years, the Kuwaiti dinar was closely linked to the US dollar. That made sense. Oil was traded in dollars. Global markets relied on the American currency. But depending too heavily on a single currency came with risks. If the dollar strengthened or weakened sharply, Kuwait could feel those effects, even when its own economy hadn't changed. So in 2007, Kuwait made a quiet but important decision. Instead of tying the dinar to only the US dollar, it switched to a weighted basket of major international currencies. That basket acts like a financial balancing system. If one currency moves dramatically, the others help reduce the overall impact. Here's the fascinating part. Kuwait's central bank has never publicly revealed the exact composition of that basket. Financial experts believe it includes currencies such as the US dollar, the euro, the British pound, the Japanese yen, and others. But the precise weighting remains confidential. Only the central bank knows exactly how much influence each currency has. That mystery gives policymakers greater flexibility while making it harder for markets to predict or speculate against the dinar. It's a quiet strategy, rarely discussed outside financial circles. Yet it has helped the Kuwaiti dinar remain one of the world's most stable and highest valued currencies for years. But Kuwait isn't the only country near the top of the rankings. It's where the story takes another unexpected turn. The Kuwaiti dinar may hold the top spot, but it isn't alone. Just behind it is the Bahraini dinar. Like Kuwait, Bahrain is a Gulf nation with a relatively small population and a long history of energy exports. Its currency has remained remarkably stable for decades, supported by disciplined monetary policy and a fixed exchange rate. Next comes the Omani rial, another currency whose value consistently ranks among the highest in the world. Oman also benefits from energy exports, but its central bank has focused just as heavily on maintaining confidence and long-term stability. So far, the pattern seems obvious. Small countries, strong currencies, oil wealth. But then, the pattern breaks. Meet Jordan. Unlike its Gulf neighbors, Jordan has very limited natural oil resources. It doesn't enjoy the same level of energy revenue. Yet the Jordanian dinar still ranks among the world's most valuable currencies. How? Through decades of cautious monetary policy, a stable exchange rate system, international investment, remittances from Jordanians working abroad, tourism, and financial support from partner nations. Jordan proves something important. A valuable currency isn't built by oil alone. It's built by confidence. Because in the end, money is only worth what people believe it will be worth tomorrow. And it brings us back to the question we started with. At the beginning, we asked a simple question. If the dollar dominates the world, why isn't it the world's most expensive currency? Now you know the answer. Because a currency's exchange rate value and its global influence are two completely different things. The US dollar remains the backbone of international trade, global finance, and central bank reserves. But the Kuwaiti dinar holds a different title, the highest valued, widely circulated currency per unit. A distinction earned through decades of disciplined monetary policy, careful financial management, and a strategy that still keeps part of its currency system hidden from the rest of the world. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. The value of money isn't determined by the size of a country's map, or the number of people who use it. It's determined by the confidence that governments, businesses, and investors place in it over time. Sometimes, the world's most remarkable financial stories don't come from the biggest economies. They come from the places most people never think to look. And that's only the beginning. Because some currencies have survived wars, others have outlived empires, and a few have become symbols of entire civilizations. Those stories are just as surprising. Until then, keep questioning what everyone else assumes. Because the most fascinating truths are often hiding in plain sight.